All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's Board of Directors meeting for the Math and Science Academy. Today is Tuesday, April 22nd, 2025. We call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. Will our students please read our vision, mission, and land acknowledgement?
Our vision is to be an innovative, sustainable model of academic excellence for all students that creates well-rounded, lifelong learners and global citizens. And our mission is that we provide accelerated and inclusive curricula and instruction in all subjects with an emphasis on math and science.
Land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the land of the Ashadi Shakawi, the people of the Seven Council Fires, and the Wapikute Band. It is within MSA's responsibility as an academic institution to disseminate knowledge about Indigenous peoples and their history with this land. MSA works to build relationships with Native American students and families through academic pursuits and historical recognition.
Thank you. Roll call of members. Wendell Slutton here. Isaac Leonardi.
Here.
Sarah Harms.
Here.
Tamara Brooks.
Here.
Jules Kinkle.
Here.
Brian Linsmeyer.
Here.
Kari Kerner.
Here.
Dan Ellingson.
Here.
Mary Yap.
Here.
I did not receive any open forum, so we will move right through. Is there a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
I'll move to.
Is there a second?
Motion. I'll second.
Okay. I do have one request for change. We'd like to pull item 9C from the consent agenda and make it 11F. This item does require a motion specific to names. We'll get to that. From 9C to 11F. Any further discussion? Recommendations? Second call. Brian, do you wish to amend the agenda as presented? Yes.
Yes.
Or do you want to change it? No, okay. And then Ms. Jules? Yep.
Yep.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion carries. Are there any conflicts of interest in tonight's meeting? Hearing none, we'll move on. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I can so move. Dan.
Moved by Dan, second.
I can second.
Discussion? Second call? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Moving on to board recognitions, we have a couple of students that we want to recognize tonight, one of which was recognized by our students last meeting, but I think it's important that we recognize them here again tonight. Tonight, we want to recognize Rocky Erickson as a recipient of the Outstanding Student of the Year by the Minnesota Indian Education Association. And I'd like to invite Rocky and or his parents to speak on the matter if they would like to.
Hello everyone, thanks for the opportunity for inviting us here this evening. We brought like a gift for the school, which is our Prairie Island Indian community flag. And we were hoping that there would be like a special place somewhere in the school that we could hang it up, perhaps.
Absolutely. Can you speak to your recognition and as far as what you are being recognized for and what maybe some criteria for it?
Okay, so I was awarded like the Outstanding Student of the Year award for this school from Minnesota Indian Education Association, which there was only like a handful of these given out, maybe like 5 or 6, I don't remember. Essentially, it's like it is basically given to like some of the like most achieving students in the state of Minnesota, and It was like a huge form of things we had to fill out. And I spent like an hour and a half just like writing things that I've done or things I've partaken in. But yeah, it took a lot of work over the years. But yeah, I'm very thankful for it. Congratulations on the accomplishment.
You want to give the flag to Mr. Heyman there, we'll find a spot for it, and then once you can have a seat, we'll take a picture as soon as we recognize the other students as well.
Come on up,
Rocky,
Rick, you can, Rocky, you
Yeah,
can sit up in
wanna
one
see
of
the
these
gift right
chairs, and then we've got a couple of people to recognize tonight.
And then Mr. Heyman will be acknowledging the other recipients.
I was hoping one of them, another one would be here. All right, thank you, everyone. I don't know where to stand.
You're talking to us.
I'm here representing, and I want to recognize 3 outstanding students who are not only outstanding students, but outstanding and involved in activities in athletics. The first award and the first 2 that I'd like to recognize are the MSA representatives for the Minnesota State High School League AAA Award. And AAA stands for Academics, Arts, and Athletics. And these 2 students are recognized for their participation in both arts and athletics, as well as maintaining a high grade point average of at least 3.0. The first one, unfortunately, is not able to be here. She is at class tonight, but I'm still going to read off her accomplishments. The first one is senior Haley Crisco, who has participated in band for 4 years. She's been in orchestra for 4 years. She's been in Nordic skiing for 4 years, and track and field for 4 years, and had all the while has maintained a GPA of 3.84 while doing this. So, congratulations, Haley. The other, our male representative is David Mushiruri, who is here. Come on and stand up. You walked in the right time. So David has participated in the arts in our fall musical in his 9th grade, 10th grade, and senior year. He earned 3 state awards for recognition through his performances there. He has also played soccer for 1 year with our co-op with TCA, and he's played basketball for 4 years and has been a 3-year captain in basketball, all while maintaining a GPA of 3.91. So congratulations. You gotta sit up there next to Rocky. Yeah. And then the last recognition I'd like to recognize, I guess, is our second annual St. Paul Area Athena Award winner. Now, the St. Paul Area Athena Awards recognizes the top female athlete from all the schools in the St. Paul area, and it's celebrated with a very nice luncheon that we had last week, wonderful presentation, and really outstanding achievement by a lot of young athletes, female athletes throughout the Twin Cities area, but specifically on the St. Paul side. And the MSA winner this year was Amelia Appleby, who has competed for 5 years and has earned 5 letters in cross country, twice being named all conference and a captain. She has earned 6 letters in Nordic skiing, twice being named a captain. And she has earned 5 letters so far in track. She just came from track practice. So, twice being named all conference and twice being named a captain. So we would like to recognize Amelia Appleby.
So if you would like to go around and shake hands first.
Oh, yeah.
We'll take a picture.
Keep up the great work. Watch out for the cord. We'll do that. That's awesome. That's awesome. Nice job. Keep it up with him. I don't know enough about him. In Wisconsin, you're like, big shoes to fill. You can do it. You got it.
We're gonna take a picture with the three of you up front here, and then Rocky's mom would like to speak on behalf of Rocky a little bit, so we'll take a picture first.
Let me see your beautiful award there. There we go.
We gotta come this way a little bit though, so everyone can get in the picture. If you guys could follow. Yep.
Can you three swing? It's a moving group.
You guys might wanna grab the chair.
They might need chairs. You're also tall. I know.
Sure, awesome. Nibi Ogechida Ikwe, that's Water Warrior Woman in Ojibwe. I just wanted to say how proud I am of being Rocky's mom. He's very humble. He did not tell anybody about this award, so I had to. I feel like he is a future leader. He's a strong leader in our community of Prairie Island as well. And I feel that being able to come to the school board meeting shows him how the school district works. And he's very excited to be able to join student council. And if someday someone would like to reach out and maybe help us get started with the Native American Student Association, we would love to be able to help with that as well. This is traditionally Dakota land that this school sits on, and it would be really great to be able to respect it in that way and to highlight it in that way and possibly bring our communities together. I see a lot of good things happening here, and I really think that Prairie Island would be a wonderful asset to your school. And I think a lot more students would love to come to school here once they realize that this is an amazing option in our community. Being one of the best schools in all of the state, a lot of people look up to the choices that you make, and you have a very beautiful school here with a lot of amazing students. So I just want to say I'm very proud of your kind and caring leadership for bringing us to the table tonight. It means a lot to me, my family, my community, so on behalf of Prairie Island as well, which is why we gifted you the flag. We would love to be able to work with you more and also just shine a good light on all the good work that we're all doing together in a partnership. I think if we braid together some Indigenous knowledge into the amazing work that you all do, that we can be stronger together. So, Padamia, Miigwech, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, students.
Thank you guys, thank you.
Congratulations, you guys are great.
Have a good evening, and I hope you get outside because it's beautiful.
All right. Moving on to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
I can second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Board and administration reports. First up is our student reports.
So to continue on that note of student recognition, this year I wanted to talk about MSA speech team that had 2 students qualify for the 2025 Minnesota State High School League speech tournament. This was 12th grader Mame Ekura Adabo and 11th grader Amanda D'Souza who will be competing. This comes after they both placed 3rd in their respective speech categories at the section tournament, and a big congratulations to them because speech is a really competitive activity and it takes definitely a lot to get to that level. So congrats to them. And then next I have MSA's HOSA, and back in March I talked about how MSA's chapter will be attending the state leadership conference, and that happened, and MSA's team has shown a lot of success from that. 11th grader Claire Nelson was selected as a HOSA state officer for the next school year. 11th grader Anya Marotra was selected as local officer of the year. 11th grader Ruth Casa qualified for the International Leadership Conference. And MSA's hosted chapter overall was selected as rookie chapter of the year. And everyone on MSA's hosted board has put so much effort into this year, and it's clearly paid off. So once again, congratulations to them. And then finally, I have the Minnesota Music Educators Association, and I wanted to recognize Will Coulter, Caroline Sturry, and Ewan Baker, who were all selected to be part of the MMEA All-State Ensembles. They were selected among thousands of other students who auditioned, and basically, the MMEA has a goal of promoting music education in the state of Minnesota, and this is a great opportunity for students across our state, obviously, to display their talents in choir, band, or orchestra. So yeah, congratulations to them.
So continuing with the theme of student recognition, April has been a really great month for MSA students. So I specifically want to highlight Zoha Khan and Prisha Rathor for making state honorable mention at Minnesota's 2025 Aspirations in Computing High School honorees, or that's what they were. A little about the program. The Minnesota Aspirations in Computing, or MNAIC program, is dedicated to inspiring young women in high school, so grades 9 through 12. And this year, we're recognizing 92 exceptional students at our Spring Top Tier and Rising Star ceremonies in collaboration with our corporate, community, and educational partners. Our awards celebrate students' computing achievements, enthusiasm for technology, leadership, community involvement, and resilience. So I just wanted to highlight Zoha and Prisha for this great accomplishment that was very competitive, and it really showed just the excellence and the hard work they put into what they do in order to get these awards. I'm running on like a couple hours of sleep, I'm sorry. Next I wanted to talk about the Wrinkle in Time play. So A Wrinkle in Time, about the show, it's one of literature's most enduring young heroines. Meg Murray is back. Braces, stubbornness and all. Once again, she's joined forces with Mrs. Whatsit, Charles Wallace, Calvin O'Keefe, and more to the battle forces of evil so she can rescue her father, save humanity, and find herself. The performances are going to be at the end of May, or the beginning of May, so May 2nd, May 3rd, and May 4th. And they're going to be in the Building B gym. The tickets are going to be $10 for adults and $8 for seniors. And it's going to be a really great way to end off our year. I know Wrinkle in Time is a book I really hold dear to my heart. I remember reading it when I was in elementary school, and I saw the movie with all my classmates. So honestly, I think it's kind of like full circle for me, especially because I'm about to graduate. So I'm really excited to go and watch that play. And I also wanted to end with a quick reminder, because I already mentioned it at our March meeting about Multicultural Night and Bingo Night, but I also wanted to highlight April has been a really busy month because we started off the month with a bunch of testing. Juniors had ACTs, and then the rest of the school had MCAs. So it's been a very chaotic month, but also a very rewarding month with all the hard work. And I think just ending it off with these two great events is going to be super fun. So on Thursday we have our Multicultural Night in the gym. And then on Friday, if you're free, we have Bingo Night hosted by NHS. So if you guys are free Thursday or Friday, it'd be great if you could show up and support us. So yeah.
Thank you very much. From the board report, at our last workshop, the board did some practice with guiding change with the discussion on succession planning. And then we also talked a deep discussion on our roles and responsibility within governance versus management, and how to support one each other when there are questions or maybe moments where we feel ourselves going into management, and how to come back into governance. So that was our workshop last week, 2 weeks ago. Dr. Hinton with the ED report.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a quick update. I know we've talked a lot about expansion, but this has been an exciting month. We closed on our property and we now own it. It belongs to Math and Science Academy. We have our groundbreaking on May 5th at 5 o'clock. Everyone is welcome. We've sent out a save the date. We'll send out invitations likely by the end of this week. We're just finalizing the plans for that. I had word that there is now earth-moving equipment on the property. We were waiting yesterday. We were meeting with the city to talk about the land disturbance permit. And it was supposed to be coming through today or tomorrow, so the fact that the equipment is lining up makes me believe that it is forthcoming. If it's not already been secured, it will be in the next couple of days. And then the other pieces, we have our town hall where we'll be talking about expansion, the 29th of April, so next Tuesday. Also, just Dr. Justin Tarks, our elementary principal, will be there joining us, so he will have the opportunity to meet you if you were there. So he's excited to join our community. Just as a little side note, I was over at the MAX conference, or MAX meeting today, and multiple people, including his former ED, or current ED, and just people from Cross Center, oh, you're gonna love Justin. So we already kind of knew that, but it's nice to have people just coming up unsolicited to tell you how great he is. So we're very excited about that. Any questions about expansion at this point? I mean, I know there's a lot going on. We've talked about it at length as well, but it's an exciting time. Go ahead, yeah.
Everything good to go for the groundbreaking on the 5th, right?
Yep, everything's good to go for the 5th.
And the community's welcome as well, just as a
Yes,
reminder.
yep, everyone is welcome. We'll send out invitations. We also know Senator Seeberger would like to come. I believe Senator Mitchell will come. We'll invite the city council and mayor and whatnot, so. As well as any alumni, future parents, current parents, students, whoever. We're gonna try to do it as close to the edge of the property. It's a construction site, so it's difficult to traverse.
What about attire? Do we wanna coordinate that, or is there, I mean,
A what?
what should we wear?
Oh, a tire, I think you said like a tire, so I was like, well, I don't know what we're gonna do with the tire.
I think supporting MSA.
Yeah, MSA gear would be great, I think, yeah, yeah,
So wear your MSA gear.
yes, if you need some,
What
let
if
me
you
know.
don't have anything, for like t-shirts and stuff?
We've got some, so let us know, we'll get some for you.
Send Dr. Hinton an email.
Just send me an email and your size, and we've got some.
Okay, just one parking. We're gonna have to figure that out.
So the city said that we would be able to park in that parking lot at the Health East. So like Kari, because it's gonna be hard for you to
Yeah.
traverse that, you can come down on Mile Drive.
Okay, that's
Um,
the gravel road?
Yes.
Yeah, that's the dirt road. I mean,
Okay.
it's not particularly handicap accessible, but
I can get
it's
some-
better than
Yeah.
traversing the soccer fields and the ditch.
But we'll put that on the website as far as
But
how to park. where to
I
park.
assume
Yeah.
there's from that road to there's
Like a
level
some-
land or,
where
Yeah,
something-
it's pretty,
okay.
We'll
yeah.
work with Koo on.
Yeah.
where that is.
I was happy to see when I went out there last week, and I was worried that the ditch was on the east
Oh,
side,
right.
but it is on the west side.
Okay,
Okay, I'm getting my, yeah, Steve yelled at me because I was saying, you know, the one down by going towards St. Ambrose, he's like, that's east. So, and then I just wanted to go through the climate survey a little bit quickly. We had 152 parents respond. The likelihood of parents recommending MSA to friends and family was 97.99%. Overall parent satisfaction, 95%. Well, I'm just gonna round here. Curriculum meeting expectations, 96%. School board upholding the mission and vision of the school, 96%. Comfort sharing concerns with school administrators and teachers, 95%. So the website, we lost a little ground on there, but I'm not surprised because we've kind of got two websites that we're finishing that out this summer and combining it down to one, which was always the plan. Parents feel 84% of parents feel discipline policies are being enforced fairly. That's up 5.6%. So we did see some good progress in the parent surveys. Student surveys, we had 314 students respond. Students are always the hardest graders when it comes to the student survey. 91% felt MSA had high standards. 92% indicated that they had the opportunity to participate in clubs and activities. 89% were satisfied with their education at MSA. This was when I was kind of excited to see 71% enjoyed being at MSA, up 12 and some percent from last year. More students feel safe here, 85%. And we had a good solid jump in number of students that feel that discipline policies are fairly enforced. It's still just 63%, but that's up 10% from last year. And, you know, students often do not like discipline, but that was good. The staff surveys results were mixed. We had 41 staff respond, which is most of the staff. 97% felt MSA is sensitive to issues of diversity. 98% feel safe at work. Same for indicated that staff show respect for one another. Again, another high rating for the board of directors, where almost 97% felt the board of directors upholds the mission and vision of the school. 90% enjoy their work, and 90% would recommend working at MSA. We did have some areas of improvement, which administration was not surprised about. We've had some pushback in regard to our professional development. We are working to develop a different plan. We went the year before, we had staff, each department presenting. The staff indicated that they did not want to do that anymore. I think we have to find a happy medium. They did not enjoy the administrative professional development as much. We did have a little bit of concerns in regard to support from administration that came from, we have changed a bit in the way that we are doing our staff evaluations. And because we are not all on the same page, staff didn't feel like it was fair, even though they were still coming out as proficient. There was more variability in how they were being scored. So we're working on improving that. And then the enforcement of discipline, they thought about 50% thought it was fair. That, based on staff comments, is due to an uptick in cheating in AI and us still trying to figure out how to fairly require the students to still do the work, but then address the behavior issue. And part of the problem is to 6th graders to 12th graders, there's a big gap in terms of understanding what's cheating and what's just using the internet to help them. So we're still working through that. So there are concerns about students cheating, speed and understanding of staff development, and changes in staff evaluations. We've already started making those changes. I think if we did the survey again today, it would look different. The survey was done in February. But it gives us some good feedback in terms of what to work on for next year. Any questions on the survey before I move to the budget? Yeah.
2 quick ones. 150 parents, how is that compared to years past?
It's up a little bit.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's gradually been going up. When I first started, I think we would have about 50, 55.
Okay.
We also asked about demographics and then the grade levels of their children. We had a pretty even split across grades, which was good. We still had majority or half the families or parents that took the survey indicated that they were white. We did a little bit better than we have in the past with voting in terms of black parents. I think it was 15 to 18%. I can't remember off the top of my head. So we made some progress on that, but there's still work to be done.
Second one's not related, but and it's an administrative item, I understand, but for AI, do we have any guidance or help from other schools, or, I mean, we're not the only school that's struggling with
No,
it.
I mean, it's a nationwide problem. What we are looking into, and we've just actually started to go get some bids on, there are some, because most of the students do things in Google Docs. There is I'm gonna say app, I don't know if it's called an app or not, but there's a program that will tell you.
It's a detector.
Yeah, it detects when, so you can tell if all of a sudden the entire paper came in as one copy paste, or if it was typed letter by letter. and some of that kind of tracking. So the technology's starting to catch up with it. There's some subjects where it tends to be more significant, like students find it very easy. The Spanish department's struggling because students will write the essay in English and then run it through Google Translate and turn it in. So there's a few things like that we're still working through. This is not a uncommon problem, but it's a frustrating problem for staff.
I will say anecdotally, it's been extremely helpful as a parent trying to help with homework, right?
Yes.
Because if I haven't gone through a couple sessions and then all of a sudden try to hop in with where their stuff,
Yeah.
it's like, you know,
Yeah.
you ask and then it'll talk you through. So, I
Right.
mean, but I agree, we have to manage that. How do we use it as a tool versus using it to
Right.
answer the question on the test, right?
Mhm.
Right.
And that's what it is, I think, having lessons on how to appropriately use AI. Just taught one to my own students, that you can use AI as a tool, you just have to cite.
Yeah.
There is a way to cite it, and
Right.
so we went through a whole lesson on how to cite the use of AI. So I think that sometimes students don't understand that it is a citable source,
Mhm.
and that it is for your, betterment, understanding.
Mhm.
Also, it's a grammatical tool. It's a tool. They should. It's not going away. So.
No, and it's being embraced in businesses. I mean, we're encouraged to run everything through AI.
Right. It's a
When
tool.
we're writing something, and it's like, really?
And the, we're cycling through the Chromebooks, so now this year, 9th graders had Chromebooks. Those students will carry those through 10th grade then. The Chromebook allows for a little bit more of a lockdown in the browser. When the students are using their laptops, we can't control what, so if they're doing any kind of assessment with the computer. So it's a frustrating problem. We're working on developing ways to address that and keep the students learning, because that's something that's very frustrating to staff when they develop this whole lesson and the kid plugs it into AI and it's done in 30 seconds and they didn't learn anything or prove anything, so.
I think to your first point, Dan, going back to survey results, I think we need to be more strategic about when we release this survey and release it during a public event or the time period where there's a public event, so we can have student council or somebody helping us push this and having technology available so people could just.
Yeah, and we did this survey a bit late this year, so I think that does impact. We did it in the weeks leading to spring break, which is traditionally about rock bottom for the staff.
So something we can do in the
Yeah.
organizational meeting is kind of evaluate the one-year plan and then determine when we want to release this.
Yeah, I think typically we've done it coming straight out of winter break,
Yeah.
which I do think does make a difference. But the data is still valid. I mean, there's still stuff that we can glean from that and use to move forward. So,
Any other questions for Dr. Hinton on the survey result? Kate?
yeah.
Is there, so I pulled up and looked at the link of the results, and you have this year's compared to last year's in 2 out of the 3. Is
Yeah.
there any way to look at that comparison for that third set of data points?
For the staff?
Yeah.
We just have traditionally not released that. I mean,
Okay.
it's down. You can tell. I mean,
Nice
it's.
to know if we were up in some places or down, or are we just down?
We were, I mean, in the areas where it was in the 90s, that was about where it was. I mean, it's
Okay.
statistically not different. These 4 areas that we noted, that's down significantly from the previous year.
And so is there any reason, like you said right before, spring break is kind of everybody's exhausted, quite honestly. Is there any chance, because I see the benefit to Dan's point of having it timed wise as far as coinciding with I think we coincided it with conferences this year is when we had some of it out there. Is there any possibility of putting the staff one out early so it's maybe not at their exhaustive point? And then putting out the parent and student around conference time so that they have the access?
Yeah, I mean, we can take a look at any of those options. I think having it January is traditionally when we've done it, and we've had decent turnout with that. I don't know, we can look at for next year whether we wanna do it with the conferences. I don't know if we got a lot out of conferences. I'd have to ask, I didn't look into that,
Okay.
so we'd have to look into that.
Something we have to keep in mind too is, yes, this survey is for us to get feedback, to receive feedback, but most importantly, this feedback is specifically to Dr. Hinton so that she can write her goals moving forward. So just be mindful of why the purpose of this survey is.
But it's a good pulse point, and our students and families, we've got some great feedback from them. I mean, we got great feedback from everybody, but it was very positive. All right, on to the budget. So yeah, I'm just gonna start with staffing. We do not expect much staff turnover. There'll likely be one retirement. We haven't heard of anybody else. Usually you can get some hints now. There's letters of rec being asked for, or, you know, you get some feelers at this point in time in the year. We don't have that right now. That doesn't mean people's lives don't happen to them and things might, but we're not expecting a lot of turnover. We have posted for one additional teacher next year. That's due to enrollment growth. That'll be a physics teacher, is what we're hoping to get. Physics is one of the hardest positions to fill, so we do have one applicant right now, so we're gonna continue to work on that. Our enrollment's on track for next year. It's, we're having to wait an extra month for students that are going back to 833. Usually we get that data a little sooner. They've had some staffing turnover, so they haven't let us know who has indicated that they're enrolling there, because that gives us a better idea of who's leaving. We expect to get that in the coming weeks. We did have exciting news that we did get $822,000 in our employee retention credit. We've been waiting nearly 3 years to receive that. I started to believe that we would not be getting that, but then the checks started rolling in earlier this month. We had approximately $180,000 in interest because it took that long to get the money. So that's excellent. It comes at a good time because we had always promised that that money was for staff salary scale improvements. And we'll look at the salary scale later on this evening. But this does allow us to reach our goal of being, we're just a little under 85% of the homeschool district 833's salary schedule. And we have, over the course of the last 4 years, gone from a 41-year salary schedule to 17 years. So that does make it much more doable for a 22-year-old newly graduated college student to say, well, it's going to take you 41 years to get to the top. We are projecting to use about $250,000 of the $822,000 in next year's budget. The rest goes into the cash reserves. This will provide us some additional, it's not insurance, but a cushion against any expansion issues that we may run into. That if there's anything at the end that we still think we need, we've got that money. We've budgeted, we've always been talking about budgeting for the new principal who's been hired and a new science teacher. We've also set aside some money for a director of teaching and learning or some other instructional support and some clerical help in the second semester. We've not fully fleshed all that out because the money has just come in, and we've got to really make sure that we're thoughtful about what we need and who the right candidate would be. But we've put that into the draft budget so that it won't be a shock when we do that. And with all of that, next year, at this point, it looks like a projected surplus of $93,419. There are still things that we need to do. We were just getting the insurance premium quotes for health insurance today. We'll bring those forward at the May work session, because we're moving from small group to large group, which is causing all kinds of variability, and so we're gonna continue to go through those quotes and see where we end up. We'd asked our agent to go back and try and see if we can't work down the cost of, we're currently with Medica. Medica came in 15% higher than what we're currently paying. But Health Partners came in 19% lower. So we're still trying to work through what makes sense. We just changed staff's insurance plan 2 years ago. People don't like to change that. It's an enormous amount of money. So we're gonna have to take a look at some more things with that. And that still has to get worked in before we can finalize the budget.
And the staff will be surveyed on that, correct? At least presented and surveyed.
Yeah, we're gonna have to, we just don't have enough information to move with anything for that at this point, so. That is the budget update. And the ED update, if there's any questions?
Just maybe a quick caution, so I think we talked a little bit about how we gotta change our hats. In the past, that was one that was very difficult to separate from the people who are impacted by the health change
Yes.
to the people that need to be responsible for the school as well. So
Uh-huh.
when we come to that discussion, just gotta make sure we all change our hats. 'Cause
Right.
It's a tough one, right? I mean, you wanna give as much insurance as possible and the best possible premium, but at the same time, we're fiduciary responsive for the school.
Right.
You know, so it's
Yeah, to your point, Dan, I went into this meeting and it was at 3:00. Like, this is the closest we could get this, which is why we pulled it from the agenda, because we knew there isn't gonna be time to process it. I went in, with my own hat on, well, I'm happy enough with Medica. We're just gonna keep with that. We'll go through this process. And then the numbers were, so divergent, so we're gonna have to take a
There's
look.
a lot of moving parts, just make sure that we can
Yeah.
keep it at that board level.
So, all right.
Any other questions, comments for Dr. Hinton? As always, if you have them, please forward them to her. All right, Finance Committee report. Isaac.
All right, well, the March month end had a much higher budget surplus due to, we had the first receivement of the employee retention credits. At the time, it was $491,000. Back in February month end, it was around 90,000. So it's just a totally different number, but the reason for that is the employee retention credit, so that really is the big news. And then after the finance reports were finalized before the meeting, we received the extra $382,000, and that is the plan to be the final part of the ERC, and there's no anticipated callbacks or anything like that, but the plan is that that's what we have, and that's what we have for now. After that, just some things to take a look at. For the ADM, it's a little bit lower at March end than the working budget, so it was 684 rather than the working budget number of 686, so it's possible the budget could go down just a tiny bit because of that, but we'll have that updated by next month. The projected days cash on hand is all good with 114 days cash in hand. Something to note is for the year we've had 60 days requirement for that. That's gonna change to 90 due to new bond sales, but we still have the numbers well above what we need. And then we're 75% through the year. I think we've covered everything else, so that is the update for all staff listening. It's still April, so you'd have till May 1st, or the last day of April for any spending requests.
Would you like to make a motion?
I move to approve the March financial reports.
Is there a second?
One second.
Further discussion? Second call. Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Thank you, Isaac. Are there any questions for Jules on the governance committee minutes? bills, I'd say take the, I just can't think today, right now. Our guiding change documents that we worked on in our last workshop, if you could take those to the next governance and kind of tie that in to that conversation that was had at the last meeting.
Absolutely. One moment. Yes.
I just have one quick question. I know, and this is going back to the board workshop that we had. We talked about succession planning when it's a short term and planned or known about short term. I guess I would ask the governance committee to also think about what happens if we have an immediate short term unplanned, because those do happen with people falling on ice or car accidents or so forth. And does that vary at all? That was something that I thought about after the thing, and I think it's important for us to look at, so we're comprehensive in our succession plan.
Absolutely. Be prepared for all potential outcomes. Yes.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Immediate short-term unplanned situations. Yeah. Got it.
It's just that unplanned piece.
Further questions or comments for girls?
Tying guiding change documents, immediate short-term unplanned situations. Got it.
All right, on to action items. Jules, you want to take the first one?
Sure, let me get there. Okay. So, this is your policy 902, and we're bringing forward to you all to repeal policy 902. Greg has been nice enough to allow us to place his email in here. I hope you have all had a chance to review that. The main issue we want to think about with this is with that policy being there, we have to, if it's there, someone wants to use facilities, there's a non-discriminatory clause in there, right? Means we have to let people use the facilities at their request. We don't have a way out of this, right? It's what it is. There's also a liability issue with this in terms of, should someone have an accident, we could have a litigious situation on our hands, which we would like to avoid, because that could affect everything else we do expansion-wise going forward. So that is the reason behind why we need to repeal this. It's been a lot of good work. We don't want to have something unplanned, unforeseen, come back to potentially throw everything off.
And if I can add, the bondholders do not want us to have this policy, because it ends up having a potential liability that could be a lien against the property that they have a mortgage against.
At signing, Craig had like 20 minutes of examples. We were just like, okay, got it, that's the first one.
Ice fall example.
Yeah. Mary?
So, quick question, how does this impact the comments that we've made to the city about the use of the track and the use of some of our parking and those kinds of things? Because
So, yeah, those are fine, because that is another public use, and they are properly insured. So we can use the Y, we can still continue to partner with the Y, and we can partner with the city. It's other outside groups that we can run into trouble with. We can also use it for any school activities, functions. We just can't like rent the building out to a church or any other outside organization.
an AAU basketball or something like that, correct?
Pardon me?
Like an AAU basketball league if they needed gym space for.
Yeah, no, we
tournaments,
cannot do that.
that.
And we're different than a traditional district in that they have community ed and they have different requirements. We do not have that requirement. So it's just advice for, one of the examples that Craig shared with us is a charter school that had allowed people to use their space, then had to let hate groups come in and use their space because they had let other people use it. So once you let one, you have to let everyone. And it's just, on many fronts, not a good idea. So that was one of the things that when he went through everything, he said, you gotta get rid of that policy,
The
so.
biggest rationale goes back to our bonding.
Yeah,
That's the
it's,
biggest-
they don't want it.
Yeah.
Sabotages everything.
It's a liability.
Jules, do you want to make a motion?
To make a move, I move to repeal policy 902.
Is there a second?
Second.
You should have started with that, I'm sorry. So who's seconding?
A second.
And then we'll include Craig's email in the minutes as a reflection of why.
Mhm.
Now, further discussion. Dan.
Just last point, is to state where we are, right? I mean, this is where we are, we can't change that, but I was, just wanna make sure that the counter side had a voice as well, and it's, how do we ever get to a space where we can be more, available or open? Because I feel like, this doesn't feel right. I think we can all agree, wouldn't it be nice if we could share our space with our
Right.
community more? And because of the way our litigious society is, we're not able to, so I think it's the right answer, I think it's the right answer for the school, to protect the school,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't feel right in terms of the world,
Right.
That I
Yeah.
struggle with.
And I think that was something that we kind of had in mind when we adopted the policy in the
Yeah.
first place,
How to help.
to be kind of inclusive and open. It's just that the liability for us, and it's the bondholders. I think the district schools are insured differently.
And maybe when approached by certain groups, we could say, you're welcome to reach out to 833, their community ed program has this, we'd like to be a part of this, but we just cannot host it. Or
Yeah.
find out a language that would communicate that.
Up until now, we've had so very little space to even share. Yeah, you wanna rent out our gym at midnight to 2 AM?
Alright. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Teacher salary. Your motion to approve the teacher pay scale.
I move to approve the teacher pay scale.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion. As Dr. Hinton stated, the average increase will average about 7%, more favorable to those at the top of the scale than at the bottom of the scale, as the retention grant was intended to reflect.
I'm just, and this is a wondering to just kind of put out there for something later, probably not for several years. Thinking about this as other districts that have truncated the number of steps they have.
Mhm.
What do you do when somebody maxes out, let's say? How are we gonna ensure that we keep those kind of teachers around, where you get them there all the way bottom right corner? How do we incentivize them to stick around?
Yeah, and that's something, we don't, because of the way we cut the number of steps, we don't really have anybody down there yet. At
Right.
some point, we may look to add some kind of, longevity stipend, which is what a lot of districts do. Although we have had people that have been here longer than 17 years because of the way nobody's been here 40 years. So nobody made it all the way to the top yet, but that will happen.
Yeah.
And now it'll happen much faster.
So, I want to just start by saying I am not opposed to paying teachers because having grown up in a teacher's household, I know you work for peanuts and you work a lot. So I thank all the teachers for doing what they do on the salary that we've been able to pay them. That being said, I'm putting on my fiduciary hat now. And my question is this pay scale sustainable without the employee retention credit going forward? Because this is a one-time payment, and with the staffing increase that we're looking at for next year. And that's part one of my questions, so I'll let you ask
Yeah.
that now.
Okay, so, Yes, because it's actually hitting us when we're gonna hit the growth, right? Because we were always, the employee retention credit, we always were gonna grow into it. It was just how many years until we hit the expansion that we could sustain it. Now we know that the expansion is coming the following year. I'm not concerned about being able to do that. It also protects us against one of our other risks that we would have is not being able to retain or attract the staff to fill the building, to staff the building. And so we're now hitting in a really nice spot that, and when we look at, we're not ready, you don't have the long-term projections, but the long-term projections do show the salary increase and then 2% a year into the future, and it doesn't negatively impact us.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then the second part of that is, how do auxiliary benefits, I know we're looking solely at pay scale here.
Mhm.
And you brought up the fact that health insurance is looking a little wonky. But when we look at auxiliary benefits, how do we compare our auxiliary benefits to our host district of 833? And how do those auxiliary benefits, how are those impacted by this increased salary schedule? For example, pension plans, and those kinds of things.
So that all goes into the formula, the pension contribution and all of that. It's a complex thing of formulas. Our benefits package, like our health insurance and our medical insurance, is better than our home district. So that helps fill that gap between that pay gap. So now we're highly competitive with neighboring districts.
Okay.
And that's something that we've had, and at this point in time, does not look like something that would be a wise thing to start to scale back or charge staff more. That's something that they do really like about working here at this point. So, but I don't have all of we just got this afternoon something, so that's why there's still some more work to be done. We're also trying to look at a rate lock from these providers as well, so we can lock in for 2 years. Because we only typically go out to bid every 2 years. So this is our year to go to bid, and it doesn't help us, it's disruptive to staff if all of a sudden we have a giant increase next year and then we have to go back out to bid because it's too high. People do not like changing insurance companies every year. It's disruptive. So.
With the years, so just looking at the gray columns, the
You know a salary's good, it's somewhat death-defying there, yeah.
It really is. So I'm just looking at this, so I'm thinking if you were hired and you've been here for 14 years, and now you're gonna be making the same as someone who's been here for 6, is that 14-year person getting moved into the 14-year slot? Like they're
No, so it's complicated about when you started. So it does impact that.
I saw that, yes.
So,
Right, but so if I started like in, to be on lane 14, I had to start for 2023.
yeah,
Or
so
14, so.
if you've been here for a long time, we didn't zoom you to the top. We couldn't afford to do that.
Okay.
So there is some people who are coming in at different spots, and so it's a little wonky that way.
So I don't know if there's a way to do that. It's so complicated, I'm sure. But I'm just thinking, as a 17-year teacher, or as a 22-year teacher, because you might have a couple of those. I might feel a little put out if I were to receive the same payment as the 10-year teacher.
Yeah, that is an issue.
Okay, so that's just gonna be have to.
I mean, that's kind of just how you end up working through when you have to start cutting steps and lanes. Steps. We don't typically cut lanes, but when you start cutting steps, that's one of the few ways to get a scale in line.
Yeah.
Which is why I'm excited to get to this point where we will likely not be continuing to cut steps.
Right.
So that people can then start to move through. We've had to do this over 4 years, because we just didn't have, we couldn't do it in 1 year.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
So then, but they jumped it, so at least so the 23-year teacher will be not 11, so in 6 years they'll be to the top of the scale.
Right, and it's really hard to go through and really just, we have to go through and see where you are
Right.
and what happened. So it's really, you can't just look at this if you've been an MSA and find your spot, which is a downside.
Okay.
But that's part of what we ended up having to do in order to get this done.
I'll follow up on that one. Are any teachers going backwards, or were they all?
No, they all go forward.
So that, I understand your concern, Kari, about the time and the fairness, but at least is that individuals made whole or better, right?
Yeah, and the thing is that you're starting to see, what's structurally in this, so even if we're only able to do the 2% inflationary raise in a year, because the steps are now, I mean, the steps used to, some of them would just be a couple $100, which is, I mean, I don't know, personally, if you gave me a $200 raise, I might almost say just keep it, like, it's kind of rude. But now you're gonna get at least, a couple percent every year. So that allows us to be able to just kind of hold the salary schedule more to an inflationary increase with your steps.
Yeah, the average is around 2,000 increase, roughly, but as a beginning.
I don't know, I'm kind of going back and forth, like, am I on the right path for this kind of thing, but I think it is a big issue, and that like over half of the teachers are in that step, or steps in the left. I don't think it does enough for them, because, I mean, that's a $10,000 difference between a 14-year, so yeah, like someone who's been here for 14 years versus someone new with 14 years of experience. I think that's just too much. If it's a couple thousand or whatever, shrug, whatever, but over $10,000 just seems way too much for teachers to be okay with. I think, and then the other version of that would be someone with 4 years of experience getting the same salary as someone with 14 years of experience who's been at MSA, especially when the ERC comes from staff who's like been through COVID specifically is what the funding's for. So I think we should take a look at this again and with at least some options to this, because I don't think it does enough to the staff who's been here, which is over half of staff. So I think it is not just, I am in that staff category, but over half of the staff is, especially as we get into expansion. I mean, in the survey, some of the results are lower than they have been before. I don't know if everyone's like for sure gonna stick around for all of that. So I think you want the people who know as much about MSA and have been through that to stick around as much as possible.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we did do was we added a lump sum to the top half of the salary scale in addition before we added the percents. I don't know that, I mean, the average increase is 6.97%. I don't think we can go higher than that without starting to put ourselves, that's high. So if we start, and this is one of the problems with steps, right? Because if we start bumping people up the steps, we blow that salary scale right up. I mean, we can't afford it. So it's a tough balance. It really is a tough balance.
Is there a way to at least get different like options to look at? Because I feel like this has just kind of been put on in the last 2 weeks. Staff hasn't looked at it. Finance committee hasn't looked at it. I'd feel at least better about it if more people had looked at it ahead of time.
Yeah, we can do it. It's gonna get tight to bring it for board approval in order to still get the wage notices done before the end of school year.
To Isaac's point, and I guess it kind of wraps back to mine regarding the sustainability piece. If we were to look at a bonus, maybe for those who have been here 5 and 10 and 15 years, a 3-tiered type bonus, one time, it's not something that would be subject to a 2% next year and the following year and so forth. Is that something that is a possibility to literally say, and I know I'm going backwards a ways, but I know we've had previous administrators say, you'll get a bonus, and I know part of that was about these funds. Don't worry, we'll get a bonus, you'll get a bonus, you'll be paid a bonus, and then it never happened. And so I think to that point, can we recognize those staff who have been here that this is sitting on? And I'm not faulting anybody who just joined us, but I'm looking at how do we keep those staff who have been here 23, 24, 25 years, we have some, 10, 15 years.
So we've done bonuses in the past, going back probably 3 years, we used to do bonuses. We made a transition to try and put that into the salary scale, so that money, so you continue to get it, so it's not at the end of the year, would you get, because it's been between $1,000 and $500, something like that. But that's a one-time thing, and then you don't get to keep that going. If we start jumping people up the scale, we're gonna have to scale the scale back significantly because we won't be able to afford it. So,
So maybe that is the best, maybe this is the best option, but it seems like we could at least look at that version where this is scaled back in some teachers.
the one thing so we have to think about.
Where the steps aren't so reduced.
Yeah, so we have to, in the end, for staff to have fewer steps, it structurally builds in that you're getting a good solid raise every year. If we put back some of those steps, then when you move up, you won't, and even if we put a 2% on it, it'll be 2% on more over time. I mean, we could potentially give a bonus, but then that would be a one-time thing, and it wouldn't be built into the scale.
My fear with the bonus is you guys are gonna get taxed to hell on that. It's like 2/3 is taken away, so the money that you guys are gonna receive, you're not really gonna get. I know, and excuse me, it's a small amount, I'm ready to figure out some other way to go through, and I understand what you're saying, Isaac, so I do appreciate that. And how do we keep the people here, but that, so I wanna kinda stay away from the idea of a bonus, even though I know where you're going with it. But is there a way that we can somewhere, or do we just kind of keep it and then just have the progression throughout to make sure, like you said, 2% will slowly grow, but it's hard to see because that's more of a grassroots going forward. Does that make sense? No. But again, if there's another thing, but like what time, when do you have to get this out to staff to make sure we're good?
Well, I mean, staff has to sign it, and we have to build the budget, which will have to get approved in May.
We are
So-
tight.
Do bonuses get taxed at a higher rate? Or they-
Bonuses do, yes.
Yeah.
It gets a different tax
Yes,
rate than?
it's normally about 2/3 of it gets taxed.
I guess when I look at this with the intention of the retention grant, is it possible to take those teachers who were through COVID, to Isaac's point, and if you look at the left column and the second column, there's a difference of averaging 2 to 3 years. Is it okay to bump those teachers up to that pay scale, so they're getting that increase for next year?
So you're gonna that's gonna be about,
So if you're at
So you're
10 years,
talking-
and you go to the 10-year for the next column.
but you're talking about 20 staff getting $2,000, $2,500 more dollars.
So basically jumping up 2 to 3 rows.
2 to 3 rows, though, that's like $6,000.
So
That,
if you were at 10 on the first column and you jumped to 10 on the second column, that's what I'm saying.
well, we have to go back and look at how much money that is.
Yeah, and that's why I'm just to Isaac's point, is there an option to do something on that side? I think-
Well, but I mean, there's endless options.
Yeah.
It's just, can we afford them?
And that may mean taking it from 7% down to 5% raises.
No, it still will end up at 7, it's just who's getting the money. Cause then we'd have to go back and put back in some steps, but if you said, you're gonna just say 3 extra steps is 4,000-ish. If you took 4,000 and you multiplied that by 20 staff, that's $80,000.
I'm just proposing an option, I'm not saying.
I mean, but that's a significant change in the pay scale, which means we'd have to go back and take stuff, either take stuff away or and we have to also remember that the scale has to be able to attract staff too. So, I mean, it's up to the board. If the board wants to reject this, we can go back to the drawing board and do it again. So, I mean,
I have a question, I'm sorry if I missed it. I was looking at something else. When you hire the new staff for the expansion and they come in as a teacher who's already taught for 8 years, are they coming in at step 8 or are they coming in at step 1?
they typically come in at their number of year service.
Okay, so that teacher who has taught 13 years somewhere else, or 14 years, comes in at step 14, your 14-year staff member here is at step 6. That's gonna be harsh too, I would think.
Yeah, it's really, it's very
Yeah.
awkward to change the
Very
salary
awkward.
scale. That's why it's really was probably, I have 41 years. It is extremely difficult as well.
And, no, I see that, it's horribly hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, we're left with not a lot of great choices.
I think I'd feel better seeing those like 3 different versions that kind of prioritize those different parts of it. And then I guess I would just add, though, it has been noticed and appreciated that there has been an emphasis on increasing the salary scale in the past several years, so that is noticed and appreciated, but I think we could take some more time on this one at least.
Okay.
Could I just ask, what problem, I guess, are we trying to solve? And I just ask that, not as antagonistic, but just out of curiosity, because each individual teacher, I understand, will have the same or more. Is it the concern that some younger teacher will come in and have, like, shortcutted it? Is that the concern? So it's like a fairness
It's
concern?
an equity question, yeah.
Equity question and a retention question of the teachers I think you'll rely on the most during expansion.
So if I understand this correctly, if we have a teacher who's been here since MSA started, and they've been here for 25 years on the new schedule, next year, if we hire a teacher who has 14 years of experience from outside, they're gonna out-earn the teacher who's been here for 25. So how do we make it right by the teachers who have been here for 20 to 25 years and not lose them?
I'm not saying no, I'm just saying that that's the reality
And
for everybody
Yeah.
changing jobs.
I think
If you
the,
stay with your job, I don't mean it like that. My experience, if you stay with your job, you get the incremental small ones. If you jump ship, you get 20-30% more. So that's not right, but that's just the way it kind of works. So I don't like it either, because it doesn't help with retention, but that seems to be the way that we do our salaries, is you get the bigger move when you change companies. And I don't want to encourage that for MSA, right? I mean, I think we have great teachers I want to keep, but I just see it as.
So we're presented an opportunity to benefit, to help those
Yeah.
teachers that have been here long term.
It's also-
I think the struggle we have when we ask what the root cause or the root issue is how do we compensate the teachers who have been here and have a great amount of tenure? And how do we attract new teachers coming in? And I think that's the crux of the issue we're faced with right now. I think I would like to see maybe some other options. I can't say that I'm necessarily ready to say yes on this right now. I'd be more apt to say, can we table it till May 6th? That doesn't get us a finance committee meeting but it might get us some feedback from staff. Is it possible to put it out and ask for maybe a
So we-
virtual
we-
meeting for finance committee? to
We
take
have a
look at
pay
this?
scale committee that has seen this. I mean,
Okay.
that we did work with a pay scale committee on this. And that was open to everyone. We had 3 people who wanted to be on the pay scale committee who looked at it. I can tell you right now, if we start trying to skip people up steps, we're not gonna be able to afford it. It's going to cost us an enormous amount of money. And this is something that school districts across the country, when they're trying to improve that it happens. I know when I was a new teacher, I think it went 3 or 4 years before I started making more than the first year teachers, because they just kept cutting steps at the top. So yes, I got more next year, but I got the same as the person who was hired yesterday. And that's typical in the education sector when you've got these steps and lanes. I mean, that's just, there's not really, no districts can afford to bump people up that many steps. And it's, when you get to that 16, 17, going from 16 to 17, there's some steps that are big. That move from 16 to 17 is a big increase for the people who go that long.
Yeah.
We can keep reworking it. I don't think we're gonna be able to jump people up steps in a way that's affordable. I mean, we're gonna have to put the steps back in. So we knocked out 7 steps this time. Those steps will have to go back in order, and so then the long-term situation is, over the years, it's gonna take you a lot longer to make those raises. So, I mean, we can keep reworking it. I don't think that there's the ability to go above the 7%. Responsibly.
So maybe said another way, if we keep the 7%, we would need to kind of reshuffle who and how. Is that right?
7% I think should be the cap, period. But who gets it and how, we can keep reworking it.
And I guess, Isaac, is that your concern, is within that 7%, can we reshuffle it
Yeah.
somehow?
Again, maybe this is the best option, but it would just feel easier to know for sure if there were some other options presented.
Is the credit money, is that a yearly thing? Is that,
It's a one-time.
No, it's one-time money,
That's
so,
one-
so
that's done.
if we can't really go above that 7% and be able to be sustainable over time. If we bump people up, like if you took someone who is at step 10 and you put them to step 14, that's a 10% raise.
I was just thinking.
And that's on top of the 4% we added to the scale, so everybody got 4%. The people in the top half got more than that, and then we had the cut in the number of steps.
So maybe it would be better to do it this year like this, in that you're not gonna have a lot of new hires this year. So when the new hires come in the following year, people will be a little more adjusted to this. It won't feel as bad going, look at all these new hires, we just got a little bit of a raise, I feel great about my raise. Except for the fact that now the new hires got, so maybe you just have to make the hard cut now.
Well,
Do this and deal
Yeah.
with the.
Cutting the steps will
Challenge
get
of it.
more and more expensive in the
Right,
future.
right, so.
And it'll be harder and harder to do it.
So I guess I'm saying it's better to do it now than when you have a lot more staff coming in. Is that correct? I mean,
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sarah didn't notice a mistake in there.
Year 12 for BA, BS plus 30, 47,000 on there.
Oh, yeah, I think that's just a typo. We'll get that fixed. I think that that's supposed to be 67,000.
Surprise drop.
That's what we're-
Congratulations.
That's where the money came from.
So on the table right now is a motion to approve the pay scale made by Kinkle and seconded by Kerner. We have to go through the practice, so any further discussion at this point?
Just one more question, so if we take the vote, which we should per the rules, the backup plan, I mean, if we don't approve it tonight, how would that work, just so I understand?
Well, then we would have to approve it in May sometime, and then, you know, it just backs up getting all of the wage notices back. For staff have to sign off on their wage notices.
So what do we get for that, what's called delay?
We could come back with a few other salary scales. They're still gonna probably have to keep us at overall 7% increase. It just would be shuffling around how many categories, or likely the only way to get the top to go higher is to add back in some of the steps that we cut out. I mean, cause something's gotta give to make it work.
Any further discussion?
For this, for the sake of understanding the Robert's Rules of Orders, do we vote, and if we choose to not pass, or if it happens to go pass, or do Jules and I rescind our,
You're welcome to rescind.
You can rescind or you can vote.
is there a difference in outcome, or what, how that looks, or?
Well, if you rescind your motion, then somebody else has an opportunity to motion. If we vote and it fails, we can give the directive to bring it back to pay scale committee.
If you move to pass something, can you vote? I
Yeah,
mean,
you
it
can vote
just
against
feels
it.
funny, like, you move past.
You can vote, you can
Yeah.
vote no.
Yes, it's okay.
You're just making the motion so we can vote on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And at the
Does that mean you're gonna
time,
vote yes?
you were feeling, yes, I wanna pass this, but through the discussion, you may have changed your
Okay.
mind, and you're welcome to vote against your own
Thank you.
motion.
And clarifying, we cannot move to table it at this point because there's a motion on the floor, correct?
Yes. Unless somebody were to rescind.
So, if we want more time, we either need to rescind or it fails, and then we can make the motion to table,
Mhm.
Correct.
to come back on May 6th.
All in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
I missed the favor, sorry.
So we'll look at, all in favor?
Fails. Any in favor?
Mhm.
I'm in favor of it.
Opposed? Abstained? Okay, motion does not pass. In the event of a tie, it needs a majority. So we will give you the directive to bring it back to the pay scale committee for further options
Okay.
at the May workshop.
Sorry, just quick, do we need to vote on that? Directive from the board?
We can, yeah.
Or is that standard?
Yeah, I mean, unless we don't wanna have to pay raises, we're gonna have to bring it back sometime.
I'm just saying, like, can you say as a, or do we have to say as a board? What for, I'm just asking.
Yeah, I'm trying to. For the sanctity of just having on the record, let's make a motion to send it back.
I can so move that Katie, I think so.
Do we wanna, are we okay with the 7% target, or do we want,
Let's put
less
the
than 7%?
motion first and then have the discussion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or maybe do you wanna make a motion?
Maybe somebody who
Sure.
disagreed, yes.
So I move to,
I move to send this back to the pay scale committee and present
for further options.
further options to the board workshop in
Six.
on May 6th.
There's the second. Mary? Now discussion.
Are we okay with the target of 7%, or do we want like a 3%, a 4%, what that might look like? Because right now it's an average of what, 7% is the average.
I think what I heard in the discussion was, we wanna see an option that better supports the longevity of the staff that's been here. We do wanna see something that is equitable in that sense. I mean, if 7% is the max that we can provide, I think that's what we should probably try to target, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I agree that it seems like mathematics, I mean, I think we're generally, and I don't wanna speak out of turn, but we wanna give as much as we can. If we can't give 10, then 7 is the right number, right? I don't see a reason to go down to 3 or 2 unless we're scrapping for cash, so 7, but just, it sounds like we just want some different ways of giving that out.
So the question then is, I mean, are we okay with some people getting like a 2-3% raise and some people getting like a 10% raise? Cause that's how we're gonna
That's
get
gonna
that
get a balance.
differentiation.
That's what I was thinking, that it has to go down to like 3 or 4, to make it so that the longevity piece that we're talking about doesn't like max people out, so to speak. So that the people who are here for that length of time, they get maxed out, there's nowhere to go. So I think if it's less, right, if it's less than 7%, that's the only way that you can.
So the overall scale is 7%. We're doing a dance because if we split the bottom of the scale too low, we can't recruit.
Right.
If we put the top of the scale, if people bump up the scale and they're getting a 10% raise, the only thing that you can do is make the people who have come here more recently get a littler raise. Because it's an average. So in order to do the average, we're gonna have to think about.
But then at that point, you're celebrating longevity.
Yeah, I think that too, yeah. So then just go down, then you can go down, right?
Brian has a comment.
And that's kind of, to piggyback on you, it's kind of like, I'm thinking like your first few years, maybe you
Yeah.
only get a 2% raise.
Right.
And then after 5 years, you get bumped up to the 3 or 4%. And then the ones that are here, we're trying to push to hold here, cause that's the community, is then maybe then, cause then if we go 2 and 3, we're up to 5%, we still have 2%. Then we can start working
Like
our
you're
way
working your way up, yeah.
And so the longer you stay here, the better your bonus becomes. And I would say that's even in the business world, right? The longer you stay, the pool of money you get to choose from.
So the pushback on that is that it's easier to leave if you've only been here a year or two. And it's harder to recruit if your entry salary is lower. So if you go too low in the bottom end, you're not gonna be able to get staff. And if you go too much on the top end, the only way to do that is to go less on the. And we're not taking anything away from anybody.
Jules?
I think we this maybe like almost a reverse progressive increase, right, where you are going to need to recruit younger people at this point based on where things are in education as a whole, right? People are leaving the field for a number of reasons outside of pay at this point, people with longevity, right? So we have to find ways to keep them, but we're also not getting people to come into this field. And their biggest reason why is, you aren't paying me enough to go into this field, why would I do this? So we have to make this attractive at that level. And you gotta pay people enough, a livable wage at this point to go into the field. Right? So there's that part of it. When you're talking about some of these amounts at the higher end, right? I'm thinking of some public school districts to our south right now, we'll not name, that the people at that higher end still get an increase, but it's a smaller increase at that point, because you're already making $90,000 a year at this. How much more do you need technically? Now, maybe you have other things in life and you do need that money, okay? But that may also be something that is outside of what could be covered with pay anyhow, right? And that may be a them problem instead of a pay problem, right? To say that as nicely as I can. But a 2% increase at that is a very big difference than a 2% increase when you're making $40,000 a year. So we have to find a way to keep this balanced and equitable for younger people coming into this field to actually attract them as well. Otherwise, you're just not gonna get people to come, regardless. We're already at 85% of what, of 833 does, even with great benefits. People don't think about the benefits, they think about the pay. So we've gotta be smart about how we do this, and it may be something that's a bit more reverse progressive. That isn't necessarily what you wanna hear as somebody with longevity, I understand that. Speaking of somebody who had longevity and lost it when they changed districts, right? And took a $10,000 a year pay cut. It's not what you want, but you can recoup that faster as well, once you're at a certain level, right? So we have to kind of weigh this out a little bit in that regard as well. And I know that's not what anybody with longevity wants to hear, but you gotta think about it that way a little bit too.
Yeah, so what we need though is comparison data is what we need, and that's what we're asking for.
Yes, that is true.
Comparative to other districts?
No, well, other districts, but also to another option than just what's presented in front of us.
Yes, yes.
Pardon?
I think I heard part of those two, it's not the how much is it moving forward, it's the how to get these people who are in the 14 years at MSA not being equal to the 6-year person. So, and that's where we talked, you said you can't move up a step at least, or can they get a one paycheck that's separate from their other paycheck that is not taxed at 2/3 of whatever gets taxed, or?
That's tax code and you can't really get around that.
No.
Because that's how taxes work.
So what we're hearing is we need a couple more options.
Comparative models.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I wouldn't be opposed to seeing a comparative model that would have a bonus to some of those longevity employees.
So a bonus is a one-time thing though?
I realize it, but if it keeps them here, that one, if it stops the attrition of staff, it might be worth it to look at.
And it might stop for 1 year, but if you're gonna go based on $1,000, you're going, you're gonna leave. If it's between $1,000, which would end up being, $400 in your check, if you were gonna go, you're gonna go. Nobody's staying for $400.
So, a couple more options. I think you can still bring this one back.
Well, I mean, I think we're gonna need to bring an option, because you can't vote on 3 different options. We'll bring a different pay scale next time, because this one's dead now, right? You voted no on this one. So now there'll be a different pay scale. We can't bring this pay scale back, because you already voted no on it, it's dead. Unless,
It was a split vote.
Did we vote no on it, or did
yeah,
we
we voted
say?
no.
Because
I
I
think
think,
we're not passing it tonight, we want a
Yeah,
comparison.
I didn't vote no, but I mean,
yeah, no,
I think
But this
that,
one failed, so we don't typically bring the same thing
'cause I
back.
was gonna say, I think what I was hearing is it'd be nice to see this next to
Next to something
option
else.
B and option C, We talk about, it, go, okay, you're right, this is the way
Mhm.
you have to go.
So what I heard Isaac say, to Isaac's point, he said, this might be the most viable option, however, how do we know that if we don't see another option? So I understood him to say that this could be the one. I don't feel like this should be just thrown out. That's
So, I
my
mean, we
opinion.
can take it back to the pay scale committee and have them decide which one they, give them a couple different options, but I don't think we put 2 or 3 options on the table typically. Only one can pass, so you would have to vote on one, vote on 3. So this one, but this one failed. I mean, I could bring it back again, but typically, once something has been asked and answered by the board, it's dead.
I think this board believes that there is another option that can be presented.
So you want 2? I mean, I just wanna make sure I'm clear what we bring back. I'm not trying to be difficult, I just don't know what the directive is, cause usually you vote on one thing. I can present to, the pay scale committee a variety of options, have them come back with a suggestion, and have the board vote on it, that it could be this one, if that's directive, but we don't typically have the board vote on 2 or 3 of the same thing that can't all happen at the same time.
Question, I'm sorry, is there a way in this whole, because now we voted, so I guess that's a thing, I mean, in my mind, clarify, it's more of a hold off, let's hold off and see, because this could very well be the answer and the right option. So is there any way to go back and rescind that, how that vote came out? Not how it came out, but how it was worded, as opposed to being a definitive, this is dead, more of a, this is tabled until we can see option B.
So what I took the vote to mean is that we take this back to the pay scale committee. If the pay scale committee comes back with this one is the one that they want, or they can look at 2 or 3 other ones, but typically we wouldn't bring 2 or 3 options to the table. They would come out of the committee. One would emerge from the committee. Now, the committee might come back and say, this is the best one.
Are they able to make edits to this one and let us consider this one against an edited version with more of what Jules described, where the percentage is lower for the top tier people for the raise? Can they just do 2 models, that one being one and another model to compare it to?
Yeah, but the board wouldn't vote on 2. The board would just vote on 1. The pay scale committee could look at, they could look at 50 of them if we wanted to.
So could then, so then could the pay scale committee go back, look at it, hear what was said here, make their decision, and if they truly decide this is still the best way to go, can you bring this back and can we vote on it and can we adopt this?
If the directive is to go back to the pay scale committee, reassess, and then have them submit something else, this one technically still already has a box that has to be corrected, because.
So when you're saying we kill this, so this could be sent back to us saying, yes, we have done what you asked us to do, we re-looked, we looked at what you said, we believe this to be the best option. And so we could vote on this at our next meeting and vote yes if that's how, so yes, we can do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, okay.
but we don't
Right.
typically bring the same thing back to the board 2 weeks later.
Well, I think to the point of the board, that what the board is saying is they don't necessarily, they do want something a bit different. It doesn't need to look exactly like this. So if this is the working model that we're editing, yes, this can be the base. However, I think that what we're asking for is just looking at it a little deeper, because then they need to answer the questions of when someone comes in as a new hire, if they're someone who's here for 6 steps and they've been here. See, I understood that different. I didn't think you come in at the same, I left a district as well and lost all my my years. I didn't get to bring my years with me.
You did.
No, I didn't.
But when you placed on the salary schedule, you were placed where you were before.
For my years of teaching. However, my years of service, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
So like, I think that should be negotiable. That's sort of my thought. And to Isaac's point, I get how that can be determined to be unfair for people who have been here, and how that would then bring concerns. And not only would you be then not retaining, you would be repelling people who had been here for longer. So then, yeah, these are the concerns, so they need to adjust it. The pay scale committee needs to adjust based on our discussion.
So that would require that we would then jump people's steps.
Mm-hmm.
We'd have to jump steps.
That's.
Yeah, you'd have to jump steps, which we can do, but that's gonna mean, very little movement on the scale.
For those who've already received the big increase from what those who have not. It's really.
Well, it gets to be exceptionally complicated then, because we've had people coming in over the last 5 years getting placed at different spots on the scale. So you can create a mess now, because if Brian came in 23, and Dan came in 24, and Isaac came in 2010, now all of a sudden people are jumping all over the place. And it's gonna quickly get to the point where it's absolutely unaffordable.
So motion on the table to move to send the scale back to the pay scale committee to give further options on May 6th.
I think the motion says exactly what it is we want options coming forward, and we will take a look at option A and option B. Is how I understand the motion.
Taking into consideration our feedback.
Taking into consideration this, kind of using if we wanted to put it into a guiding change, how do we come up with this? How do we come up with a salary schedule that both recognizes the longevity of staff and the need for attracting new staff? I mean, if you were to make a pure, simple guiding change statement, I think that's it, right?
So you want multiple scales at the table, or you want the pay scale committee to look at multiple scales and make a recommendation to the board?
I think the motion is for options, meaning we want multiple. 2.
Yeah, that's what I understand.
I mean, in the interest of time, because if we come back to this again and we can't make a decision based on discrepancy or questions, then we're just further pushing it back again. So to me, it makes more sense to have at least 2. And then just say we need to choose.
Well, and to that point, you can bring 2 options, explain them both, and then you can make a recommendation to the
Yeah,
board
right.
stating, I think that it is in the school's best interest that we go with this option.
So to me, and we can talk, I don't wanna belabor this, cause we've been on this for a long time already, but I can show you what the pay scale committee considered and what was recommended. The end number is what, for the board, is gonna matter, which is the 7%. If we're gonna sit here and pick through where do I end up on the scale, or where does this, then we start to get into an area where it's hazardous, let's just say that.
All in favor of the pay scale going back to the pay committee? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. On to the election ballot. Carrie, you have a recommendation? Or I move.
I move, did I need to, so, yes, I move that we, for the election ballot, if we look at that, we have an open spot. So I would move that we, how do I recommend it, that we open the window for staff again to submit nominations. And open it for a day or 2 days. Is that the correction? We're at, or what do you want?
So to just add, there was some, the staff
Right.
candidate rescinded their.
Right, sorry, yes.
their
So
nomination.
we have, the staff is rescinded, so that leaves us with no staff candidates. And in the, to be fair and open and transparent, everybody should have the option to submit themselves. We do have one staff member who's already shown interest, but we should make sure there's no one else out there. So I would motion, yes, that we open the window for the staff for a short period of time, because we do have our thing on May 1st. So we can do open it tomorrow for 24 hours or 48 hours, or? I'll just motion that we open the window to staff. We can decide later.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Discussion? So as Kari said, I did rescind my nomination. I shared a letter with the committee stating that I am going to be pursuing my master's degree. That was all information that came to light within the past couple of weeks. So I just want to quickly read through my letter. States, I sincerely apologize that I wish to rescind my candidacy for the board prior to its approval. Please know that this decision was not made lightly, as there are several contributing factors and I feel that are important to share. As I've shared, I've decided to pursue my master's degree. This commitment does require my attention throughout the summer and many school hours after school, making it challenging for me to commit to my roles and responsibility as a member of the board. I truly appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board, and I'm proud of the work that this board has put into its development over the past 2 years. It is my wish that the board continued success in the future. My hopes are that all board members, present and future, will pledge to the principles of communicating with one voice, shared professional development, and the implementation of the communication protocol. It will take practice and persistence. Being on the school board takes time, energy, and commitment, and sometimes it can be challenging, particularly when our own community members do not understand our role and choose to take their misunderstandings on us personally. That is why it is up to the board of directors to support each other even when we disagree. I look forward to continuing my work at MSA, and I will be watching the board in its continued progress and success. Thank you for your consideration. That also being said, I shared with you the candidate statements from Ms. Nice, who had every intentions of applying for the board, but was out of state when the due date was and got stuck in a snowstorm and was unable to submit at that time. But she has expressed interest through Dr. Hinton's and myself's, that's the word I'm trying to think of, campaign to getting the student, or getting people to
It's one way, one thing
participate.
to call it.
Friendly reminder.
So that being said, we do have a potential candidate here on the table tonight. It is up to the board if whether we want to open the window again for more candidates, but I feel strongly that the teachers have spoken already. They've had the opportunity to express. And Dr. Hinton and I have done our share in campaigning, so.
So I motion that, so we could just adopt this and say we're done? And not open the window again?
It's an option, there is nothing in statute that says we can't. Here.
So, just to be clear though, because we had the window open, and I believe if I recall correctly, it was open for 3 weeks prior to it closing. So everybody had ample opportunity to put forth their application.
Yes.
We are fulfilling our state statute requirement, because you can have up to 9, and we can have up to 4 teachers. The minimum requirement through the state is that we have 1 teacher. We have 1 community member, and we have 1 parent, and that's 124. E7, and I have it here, if anybody wants a copy of it, it's there. So we would not have to open it, and we would not necessarily need to accept this. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. I'm just throwing this out as something to consider. We would then have a seat that would be open, an additional seat that would be open in a year. It would be a 2-year seat to fulfill the rest of this.
No, we can't run, it can only be appointment or election on that remaining term. You cannot run an election. So if somebody isn't elected, that seat can only be filled by appointment or in 3 years by election.
Okay, I did not see that in the statute, but as I look at it, it could open us up for the potential, if we get approved for a K-5, to then have one of those spots be a K-5 spot. Not saying we should, I'm just saying it is an option. But I think if we're going to open it and accept this application, I really feel strongly that we need to open it to the entire school community. Because they all had, snowstorm or no snowstorm, they all had 3 weeks to put in their
So you're saying
application.
we do not need to reopen it again, that we can just go ahead and?
No, I'm saying we should not just go ahead and take hers. If we're gonna take hers, we need to reopen it.
I'd also like to clarify too that after this year, there were 2 teacher seats open at the point in which we'll be looking for that elementary position. So your point.
They still won't be
We have
able
to
to
be-
run.
yeah, they still
still
won't.
won't be able to run.
So
Right.
that's just a point of clarification on that.
Yeah, because they won't be employed as an elementary teacher
Mhm.
this time next year. So they couldn't be that.
So for best practice, it is important for us to fill this and let our community speak on how it is filled.
Which I think would speak to opening it up.
Yeah.
To the entire
And
teaching community.
as you pointed out, it does not have, they've had 3 weeks, so I don't think it has to be a long period of time. It could be a simple 24 hours.
And I mean, to your point, we could open it for 24 hours and we could have them submit to Wendell if they are interested. If there is another candidate, then we can have an election committee to just a quick,
Sure.
take a look at it.
Yeah.
If there isn't, then you could already approve to add this to the ballot as it is.
Could we approve that today to get that done?
I would think so, but then with the idea that if there's another one, I suppose the board would have to deputize the election committee to
Verify
accept that
their-
nomination and add it to the ballot without another board meeting.
So we could open it for 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours, and approve the ballot with any additional staff applying, running for, And I think it makes sense for it to go to the email, either to you, Carly, or Sarah, where you're already on the election committee.
Dan?
I was just gonna, build on some of the points. I like the idea, but even though we've changed our policy and we don't differentiate between, let's say appointed or elected, I think if at all possible, we should try to get elected, just because that gives the community the chance to provide, as opposed to the good old boys or whatever at that, sorry if you use that, but you know what I mean, like, we're self-fulfilling. So I like that, I also like being fair because we had it open, we had a procedure, so I would say it needs to be fair to any and all, giving them another chance if we, cause if we can have another quote elected board member for the teacher position, I think that would be the best outcome for all. So I guess the question is, if we have time enough to support even just a short window, I would feel better with that than us appointing, because I would agree with Wendell's comment that it would be great to have, I'd rather have an appointed one than none. But even that appointed gets a little bit tricky, right? Because you have folks coming in and then why'd you choose this person? It's because you're a friend, or people fill in the blanks when they don't understand. So keep it above board as best as possible. I think we're doing a great job as a board, as another board, board. We're doing a great job as a board. Let's keep all of that out in front of the community, if possible. But even this one, I'm not questioning intent, but to come in and just approve one, I think is back to like, well, we gotta be careful. Let's make sure that if we approve the one, we give ample space for all to come in. And maybe we end up with this one, that's fine, I don't know.
There's always opportunities for write-ins.
Yeah.
Brian, you should make a point.
And I was gonna piggyback on what both of them said, is if we open it for one, we have to have it open for someone. My concern was just the time length. 24 for me is too short, 48, we're starting to get close. But we also gotta move forward.
We've gotta be careful going too long,
Right.
because we're gonna get too close to the start of the
Yes.
election. The election's open for 2 weeks, so I think statutorily we're fine. I also know that the teachers have thought about this, so if they wanna do it 24 hours,
It'll be
should be
pretty good.
sufficient.
So I can support, but I do think it does need to be open if they find someone else's, and so whatever time period we need. And then, to your point, so it's not we okayed this one, now we're closing it,
Right.
it's gotta be open.
So how about if we would open tomorrow morning out to the staff and they had through noon on Thursday? So that's 24, that's 36 hours. Like that.
I could support that.
But, right, so gives them a little time. But by Thursday afternoon, we can know if there's anyone else. And if we could, I mean, you've all seen the ballot, there's plenty of people there are other spots. If we could today vote to accept the ballot as is, except for the staff. And that would be,
So you could accept it with the additional nominee, and the idea that the election committee could add additional teacher nominees who qualified,
yeah.
so that you didn't have to have another, but then this ballot's already approved. If no one else comes in, then it's just done. There's no more need to.
That'd be the best, yeah.
So Kari, what I'm hearing is you'd like to amend your motion.
Yes, I would.
I move to open the candidate,
The
we're
staff.
doing just teacher? Because there's conversation on all.
Do we need to, I think just for staff, we would need to open.
Okay, I just want to be
Do you
clear,
think-
because I heard there was conversation on everything being open.
Because
I
that's
think
not,
it was to all staff.
Okay.
Dan, and you
All
were talking
teachers.
about.
Yeah,
Teachers.
Is that
Okay.
okay?
Yeah, that's, I just want to be clear.
Okay.
So I move to open the staff candidate self-nomination for a 36-hour period.
Until
Yeah.
Thursday at noon.
Or
I
until
think.
Thursday.
beginning
at this point.
Would you like me to say it as you're going?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Sounds good.
self-candidate nomination.
Say it, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead,
Till
Sarah.
noon.
So I move to open the the staff candidate self-nomination.
I move to open the self.
Candidate
Staff candidates
Staff candidate nomination, got it. Yes,
until noon on Thursday,
until noon on Thursday,
April 24th.
April 24th.
2025. And grant authority to the election committee.
And grant authority to the election committee to add any further staff,
Candidates who meet the requirements of the bylaws.
yes, who meet the requirements of bylaws.
So, Corner, Brooks, do you still
I second.
second it?
One more
I
time.
second all of that.
I move to, let's put reopen.
I was like,
I move to reopen the staff candidate self-nomination until noon on Thursday, April 24th, 2025, and grant authority to the election committee to add staff candidates who meet the requirements of the bylaws.
Yes.
We need something about approving the ballot.
Would that be a second motion, or does that have to be in there? I
It
move
could be a
to, I
second.
move
It
to
could be
approve,
one.
I move to approve the ballot for the community and, parent nominations.
is that a separate?
Is this, yeah, just all.
It's getting ugly.
So it's approve the
Approve
ballot
the
with
ballot.
the inclusion of the new nominee, and then give the election committee the authority to accept additional teacher nominees who are qualified through Thursday at noon.
So let's put, I move to approve the ballot, including the community and parent nominations. I think Dan had a word last time that really worked well.
Well, you're
Kind of
approving
thing.
the whole
Yeah,
ballot
that's
with
what I'm
the
trying to say.
addition of
Yeah,
the additional nominee.
yeah, I think that's what I was thinking, with substance and. So I move to approve the ballot, including the community and parent current community and parent nominations,
With the addition of,
with nominations with the addition of the submitted teacher candidate, the rescinding, we have to put that in there.
It's for the RCF.
Would it be cleaner to just say the election committee's gonna come back with the staff one, that can include this one and any others?
yeah, so it's approval of the ballot with,
Parent and,
well, it's just the approval of the ballot, right? With the additional nominee, and with the additional teacher nominees that have been approved by, or who meet the qualifications.
it's just getting a little wordy, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Maybe
Because we don't need to keep
motions.
saying parent and community,
Right,
because they're the
right.
ballot. The ballot is the
Can we
ballot.
motion twice? Or no? Yeah, you're right, it's simply that, is that we move to approve the election ballot.
We have to do the rescinding first.
So,
Okay.
motion to approve.
With the exclusion.
With the exclusion of the rescinded candidate, period. And then
And then do another motion to reopen the window.
we
Granting
motion to
authority.
open the window and give the
Yes.
election committee the authority to accept and approve any other qualified staff candidates.
I'm struggling with that because the first motion approves the ballot as it is.
With
Well,
your
With the
With the
exclusion of.
addition of a.
With your decision.
Yeah.
With-
So I move to approve the ballot with the addition. Oh, some addition. Sorry. just-
Except,
With the exception,
Would
Or-
it be possible to just approve the parent and the parent and community? That's approved, and then the board
Yeah, maybe
asks
that's just
that the
cleaner.
teacher section go back to the
Mhm.
election committee and
Come back with,
the
yeah,
names
that's
by
the
April.
way to do it, Dan.
yes,
Yeah.
it's short, it's clean, it's easy, it's
Yeah.
clear.
Kari and,
Mhm.
I think that's what you're trying to say.
Absolutely.
So we have to do this separate,
mhm.
I'll vote on that.
So I move to approve the parent and community member
Nominations.
nominations for the ballot. Okay,
More discussion?
any further discussion? Mhm. All in favor? Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, now the other one.
I move to reopen the staff self-nomination until noon Thursday, April 24th, 2025, and grant authority to the election committee to add, we should pick, qualified, or add staff candidates who, yeah, never mind. Add staff candidates who meet the requirements of the bylaw.
Yeah, because then this.
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
yes, because then this would be a part of
Yeah,
that,
that would
and
be a
then
part
that
of
would
it.
be approved by the.
Yes. Thank you for your patience on this. Is there anybody who would like to make that motion?
I will make that motion, exactly how you just said it.
Seconded.
I second that motion.
Gotta get it right, because it comes down to the right wording.
Mhm.
All right, discussion. So this means the committee will take the candidates, will meet Thursday evening, virtually, and then approve the ballots from there, and then they'll be posted online. I would say that evening, if we can.
If there's any additional candidates. 'Cause
If
if there's
there-
not any additional candidates,
Well,
then
this will be the one, if
yeah,
there is,
beyond that.
Yep. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. All right. Charter contract update, this is just gonna be a discussion. So last week, Dr. Hinton and I received a notification from MDE saying that they had reviewed our contract renewal with Sam. There were some discrepancies in there that needed to be addressed, specifically to some with our specific contract, some with our bylaws, and some with our website. All things that were very manageable to do on our end. There is a little bit more work on Sam's part in this contract. So in front of you, I handed out Exhibit B and Exhibit G. If you look at Exhibit B on the back side, the part that is highlighted in yellow is the part that needed to be added according to MDE.
It's just a change, because originally, our Exhibit D just said that we would report on our implementation of purpose and mission through our annual report. MDE wanted something more robust.
Exhibit G goes into a little bit more detail, so the first copy that, there's a red line version and a proposed. The red line is basically what needed to be corrected, and then the proposed option is what will be going forward. Sam has acknowledged that they still need to do a little bit more work on this, so they will be reviewing this even further.
This should be okay. The Exhibit G should be okay. She's gotta do more work on the contract, but this needs to be board approved. Because this, the admissions procedures have to be board approved. Most of the, I'm sorry, Wendell, I'm interrupting you.
Well,
Am I okay to?
My understanding was I didn't think we got through this tonight because she wanted to go back through it. That's my understanding.
So she's still gotta do a lot with the contract. The Exhibit G should be fine. The thing that we had to remove, a lot of it is just switching up language to make it easier to read. What had to be removed based on MDE's guidance was that new students have to attend in the first 5 days. We're not allowed to do that. So that is the only substantive change. Others is just, this is kind of turned into a document that has been edited so many times that we just went back through and cleaned it up quite a bit because it was just confusing.
But we wanted to make sure that this is in front of you so you can see it comparatively.
So we do,
My understanding is that the admissions procedures need to be board approved.
Question
Yeah.
for you. And I'm looking at, sorry, exhibit G.
Yeah.
Under the admission procedures, number 3, under the admission statement. We no longer do the intent to return form. It's assumed that everybody's returning
So
unless they fill out an intent to leave.
I think
does
that
even need to be in there?
what we like to do is try to get from people if they're not returning, it's not binding, but if we don't have it in there, then it can be problematic.
In the past, it was an intent to return, so every family, if you were coming back the next year, had to sign that you were coming back. Now we've gone to an intent to leave form, so it's assumed you're all staying
So-
unless you fill this out. So I'm wondering if that number 3 needs to be changed because our practices have changed.
So legally, everyone, until you enroll in another district, you're enrolled here. We do want the option to be able to ask people if they, intend to return or not return. Cause we do collect that to a certain extent, we don't necessarily send it all out, but if we take it out of the procedure, then we shouldn't do it.
So does it need to say that it's optional in there?
Pardon me?
It doesn't have to say that, I mean, just because it says during the month of January we do this, you don't have to do this. Is what you're saying, the intent to return.
For the intent to return?
Yeah.
No, we don't have to do it, we can do it.
And I'm sorry, going backwards, was the word, the definite terminology enrollment taken out then? Was it just removed completely?
With the definition of enrolled student,
Yep,
enrollment, is that what you're talking about right here?
yep.
It's crossed off.
Yeah, so MDE was confused because we were using enrolled and admitted, and they wanted us to use one terminology. So we took out enrollment.
Oh, I
because-
see, you put it in it, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
that was their feedback to us.
Oh, okay.
Got it.
So. Cover our bases, is there a motion to approve?
The admission stuff.
Just the updated admissions procedures. And really, it's, the only substantive change is, you don't need to approve like wording changes, you just need to approve substantive changes.
Do you wanna make that motion?
I motion to approve the admission procedures document that we have here.
In exhibit G? Is there a second? Further discussion? Second call. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Bylaws updates, as you saw, this is part of that MDE notice. It was just some language specific to our student representatives, just making sure that they're non-voting members. Language. And then there was a letter
There were, yes,
in
there
the
was
new legislative update that was confusing.
yeah, it was, we had, there's just, the sub-paragraph was C, it should have been E, so we're just cleaning that up too.
And that's part of that legislative update that we approved in our last approval.
Mm-hmm. We're just fixing the typo.
Is there a motion to approve the updated bylaws?
I move to approve the updated bylaws.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Further discussion? Second call?
Sorry, I have a question. Do we need to make sure that well, let me change how I ask this. Are our bylaws able to be more restrictive than state statute?
Yes.
Okay. Same question. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes.
Officers, please hang around and sign these
Yes.
things.
Yes.
Because I don't have, after the bonding thing, running around chasing people for signatures is not fun. So make sure you can't leave, you don't get an exit ticket till you sign it.
11F is the approval of the Charles Schwab's account update. Sarah has language on that, so she will make that motion.
Yeah, so it's not 11H, just do so.
Oh, H.
The actual voting on
Oh,
our extra stuff there. But yes, so we need to add Shawnee Holt and Catherine Hinton to the Charles Schwab account because they didn't have access before, so.
they needed legal names.
Legal names on there. So I move to add Shawnee Holt and Catherine Hinton to the Charles Schwab account.
And Dr. Hinton, you know,
Second.
speaking on that, second by Tammy.
So we've had this Charles Schwab account for forever. No one who's listed on the Charles Schwab account has worked here, nor do I even know who they are, so it's that long ago. So this is just cleaning up and making that account accessible to us. We don't intend to do any changes other than it's just good practice to be able to have access to the money that we have.
Do we know what's in the account called at this point?
Yeah, well, there's $253,000 or something to that effect in there. It's accounted for in our cash. It's just, we can't do anything with it. So, and we're not intending on spending it. We're just,
Are we able to move it to keep it more consistent moving forward, or?
if that's something that we end up deciding to do just as our normal cash management process, but we've been unable to do that because there's no signers on the account.
So it's to get signers on the account so we have the ability to access it if needed essentially.
Right, it's just,
Okay.
it's just being able to get on the money that's ours if we needed it or
That would
wanted it.
make more sense to move it to Old National, or?
I don't know, well, that's not the discussion right now, I
Okay.
don't know.
Yeah, it's just getting access at this point. Okay.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Alright, so future board items, staff health insurance contracts will be presented at our May workshop as a special meeting. With that now will be our teacher salary. Our ed review will be, ED review will be in May. More information will be sent out to you via email on that. We'll have a discussion at our work session on strategic planning extension. At the May meeting, budget approval, and then policy 721 procurement policy update on that. Any other things coming up? It's the end of the year soon, so.
Graduation.
Graduation, yes. Please plan to be there.
I move we adjourn.
Is there a second? I'll second. All in favor? Thank you, everybody, and thanks for the discussion.
Abby, did you stay awake?